Dr. Sarah Chen had been on the colony world of Epsilon 7 for exactly 3 months when she found the creature dying in the ravine. The sun was setting, painting the twin moons in shades of amber and crimson, and she'd been collecting soil samples near the eastern ridge when she heard it. A sound like wind through broken glass, low and rattling. She almost turned back. The handbook was clear about unknown fauna. Document from a distance. Never approach. Call the security team. But something in that sound pulled at her. The way a lighthouse calls to ships in fog. It wasn't aggressive. It was resignation. It was goodbye. Sarah climbed down the rocky slope, her boots sliding on loose gravel. The ravine was deeper than it looked from above, maybe 30 feet, and the shadows gathered thick at the bottom. Her headlamp cut through the darkness, and that's when she saw him. The wolf was massive, easily the size of an earth bear. His fur was pure white. Not the white of snow, but the white of starlight, of things so old they've forgotten color. Blood matted his side, dark and wet, and his breathing came in shallow gasps. One of his legs bent at an angle that made Sarah's stomach turn. But it was his eyes that stopped her cold. They were golden, not yellow, not amber, but the gold of ancient coins buried in tombs, of things that had seen empires rise and crumble to dust, and they were looking right at her with an intelligence that made her question everything she thought she knew about alien life. Easy, Sarah whispered, though she had no idea if the creature could understand tone, let alone language. She set down her sample case and pulled out her medical scanner, the one she'd brought for colonist emergencies. I'm not going to hurt you. The wolf made that sound again, that wind-through glass rattle, and Sarah realized it was trying to speak. Not in words she could understand, but in something older. A language of breath and intention. She'd read the xenolinguistics reports. Some species didn't use words at all. They used something deeper. She moved closer, slow and steady. The wolf didn't move. Couldn't move, she realized. His body was shutting down. She could see it in the way his breathing slowed, the way his eyes began to dim. He'd given up. Whatever had brought him to this ravine, whatever battle or disaster, he'd decided this was where his story ended. Not today, Sarah said firmly. She'd lost too many patients in the colony's early days. Equipment failures, supply delays, the harsh reality of frontier medicine, but she was damned if she'd lose this one, human or not. She ran the scanner over his body. The readout made her swear under her breath. 3 broken ribs, punctured lung. That leg was shattered in 4 places, internal bleeding. By all rights, he should already be dead, but his heart kept beating, slow and steady as a drum in the dark. Sarah pulled out her emergency med kit. It was designed for humans, but biology was biology. She had coagulants, pain suppressors, tissue regenerators. Not enough for everything, but enough to buy time. She loaded a syringe with broad-spectrum painkillers, adjusted the dosage for his massive size, and hesitated. This is insane, she told herself. You're giving experimental medicine to an unknown alien species. You could kill him. You could trigger some kind of diplomatic incident. You could... The wolf's eyes met hers again, and Sarah stopped talking. There was no fear in that gaze, no anger, just a quiet curiosity, as if he was wondering what this small human creature was doing, why she hadn't run away. And underneath that, buried deep, was something that looked like hope, old hope, worn down by time but still there, a spark in the ashes. Sarah injected the painkiller into his shoulder. The wolf's body tensed, then slowly relaxed. His breathing eased. Not much, but enough. She worked quickly after that, hands steady despite the fear singing in her veins. She sealed the worst of the external wounds with medical adhesive. She injected coagulants near the internal bleeding sites. She stabilized the broken leg with a temporary splint made from her sample case and climbing rope. It took 2 hours. The moons rose higher and the temperature dropped. Sarah's hands went numb, but she kept working. She talked the whole time, a steady stream of words about nothing and everything, about Earth, about why she'd come to this distant rock, about her grandmother who'd raised her, who'd taught her that every life mattered, human or otherwise. The wolf listened. She could tell because his eyes never left her face, and slowly, gradually, some of the light came back into them. When she finally sat back exhausted, the wolf was still dying. But he was dying slower. The bleeding had stopped. The pain was managed. His breathing was steady. It wasn't a cure. It was barely even first aid. But it was a chance. I need to get you to the colony, Sarah said. We have better equipment there. Proper facilities. But I can't carry you and I can't leave you here while I get help. The night predators will... The wolf made another sound. Different this time. Not resignation, not pain. It was almost like a laugh, dry and ancient. And then, impossibly, he moved. His good front leg pushed against the ground. His body trembled with the effort. Sarah lunged forward to stop him, to tell him he'd tear open everything she'd just fixed. But the words died in her throat. The wolf was standing. Barely. Most of his weight on his 3 good legs, body shaking, but standing. He looked at her with those golden eyes, and Sarah understood. He was saying he could walk. Maybe. If she helped. "You're stubborn," Sarah said, and she found herself smiling despite everything. Good. I like stubborn. She positioned herself against his uninjured side, taking as much of his weight as she could. The wolf was impossibly heavy, but he moved carefully, each step deliberate. They climbed out of that ravine together, human and alien, doctor and patient, 2 beings who by all logic shouldn't exist in the same universe, let alone help each other survive. The colony was 5 miles away. It took them until dawn to reach it. And with each step, Sarah felt something changing. Not just in the wolf, though she could feel his body growing stronger as the medicine worked, but in herself, in the space between them. Something old and new at the same time, a connection forged in blood and stubbornness, and the simple refusal to let death win. She never thought she'd heal an ancient albino alien wolf that night. But then again, she never thought she'd find someone who understood her particular brand of stubborn hope. The universe, Sarah was learning, was full of surprises. When they finally reached the colony's outer perimeter, the security lights blazed to life. Alarms began to wail. Sarah heard shouts, the sound of weapons being charged. The wolf stopped moving, his body going rigid under her hands. She felt his muscles tense, preparing for whatever came next. "Stand down," Sarah shouted, her voice hoarse from hours of cold night air. "Medical emergency. I need a trauma team now." Commander Rodriguez appeared at the gate, rifle raised, his face a mask of shock. Behind him, a dozen security personnel took up defensive positions. Sarah couldn't blame them. The handbook had entire chapters about unauthorized contact with indigenous life forms. "Dr. Chen, step away from the creature," Rodriguez ordered. Slowly. "No," Sarah said simply. The wolf's weight pressed against her, and she pressed back, keeping him upright. "He's injured. He needs help. I'm bringing him to the medical facility." "That's not a request, doctor. That's an order." Sarah met Rodriguez's eyes across the distance. She'd always respected the commander. He was fair, competent, kept the colony safe. But right now she didn't care about orders. She cared about the being leaning against her, trusting her to see this through. "Then court-martial me later," Sarah said. "But I'm not leaving him." The standoff lasted maybe 10 seconds, though it felt like years. Then Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the colony's head of xenobiology, pushed through the crowd. She took one look at the white wolf and her eyes went wide. "Mother of God," Yuki breathed. "Sarah, do you have any idea what you found?" The medical facility wasn't designed for patients this size. Sarah and Yuki had to clear 3 examination rooms, push the beds together and reinforce them with cargo crates. The white wolf watched everything with those golden eyes, patient despite the pain that had to be screaming through his body. Rodriguez had allowed them inside, but he'd posted guards at every door. Sarah tried not to think about what would happen when the authorities on Earth heard about this. Unauthorized contact protocols existed for good reasons. Diseases, cultural contamination. The last thing humanity needed was another interstellar incident, but that was a problem for tomorrow. Right now, she had a patient. "His cellular structure is unlike anything in our database," Yuki said, studying the scanner readings. She'd been running tests for the past hour while Sarah stabilized the wolf's vitals. Carbon-based, but the proteins are folded in ways that shouldn't be possible. "And Sarah, look at this." She pulled up a holographic display. The wolf's cells glowed blue-green in the projection, and Yuki zoomed in on one. Inside the cell wall, something moved. Something that looked almost like a tiny galaxy spinning slowly. "What am I looking at?" Sarah asked. "I have no idea," Yuki admitted. "But whatever it is, it's in every cell. It's generating some kind of field. Energy, maybe. Or information. The readings don't make sense. It's like his body is running on a completely different set of physical laws." The wolf made a sound, that wind-through glass rattle. Both women turned to look at him. His eyes were fixed on the holographic display, and Sarah could have sworn she saw something like amusement in them. "You understand, don't you?" Sarah said softly. "You know exactly what you are. The wolf's ear twitched. Not much, but enough. A confirmation. Yuki, we need to operate on that lung, Sarah said, pushing aside the mystery for now. And the leg needs proper stabilization. Can you fabricate a bone scaffold using the printer? For his physiology? Sarah, I don't even know where to start. One wrong calculation and we could kill him. Then we don't make wrong calculations, they worked through the night. Sarah had performed surgery in difficult conditions before. Field hospitals. Natural disasters. The early days of the colony when supplies were scarce. But she'd never operated on a being whose biology was actively rewriting itself. Because that's what the wolf's body was doing. The tissue regenerators that should have taken hours to show effect were working in minutes. Broken blood vessels were knitting themselves back together almost as fast as Sarah could seal them. The bone scaffold Yuki printed was being integrated into the fractured leg like the wolf's body had been waiting for exactly that solution. This is impossible, Yuki whispered. His healing rate is beyond anything natural. Maybe where he comes from, this is natural, Sarah said. She was elbow deep in the wolf's chest cavity, carefully extracting bone fragments from his lung. The organ was massive, easily the size of her torso, and it pulsed with a rhythm that felt older than time. The surgery took 6 hours. When they finally stepped back, both women were swaying with exhaustion. The wolf lay still on the reinforced tables, his chest rising and falling in steady breaths. All the monitors showed strong vitals, stable, improving. Sarah pulled off her surgical mask and sank into a chair. Her hands were shaking. Now that the adrenaline was fading, the full weight of what she'd done was hitting her. She'd brought an unknown alien into the colony. She'd performed experimental surgery. She'd violated about 24 protocols. Worth it, she said out loud. Definitely worth it, Yuki agreed. She was staring at the wolf with undisguised fascination. Sarah, I think he's ancient. Not just old, ancient. The cell degradation patterns, the way his DNA is structured, it's like nothing I've ever seen. If I didn't know better, I'd say he's been alive for thousands of years. That's not possible. Neither is half of what we've seen today. The wolf's eyes opened. Sarah was at his side immediately, checking his readings. Everything looked good. Better than good. His healing was accelerating. Hey there, Sarah said gently. You're going to be okay. The surgery went well. You need to rest now. The wolf regarded her for a long moment. Then slowly, deliberately, he moved his head, pressed his forehead against her palm. The gesture was so clearly intentional, so obviously meaningful, that Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. You're welcome, she whispered. Over the next 3 days, the colony learned to live with their unusual guest. Rodriguez remained skeptical but had to admit the wolf showed no signs of aggression. The guards stayed posted, but they started bringing the wolf food offerings. Meat from the colony's protein printers. He ate carefully, politely, and Sarah swore he was thanking each person with his eyes. The colonists were fascinated. They'd been on Epsilon 7 for months without seeing any intelligent alien life. Now there was a massive white wolf recovering in their medical facility, and the mystery of him spread through the colony like wildfire. Yuki spent every spare moment studying him. She discovered that the spinning galaxy things in his cells were generating some kind of quantum field, that his brain showed activity in areas that shouldn't exist, that his body temperature was somehow tied to the planet's magnetic field. Sarah just sat with him, talked to him, changed his bandages, made sure he was comfortable. She told him about Earth, about the oceans and forests, about humanity's long journey to the stars, about her grandmother and the small clinic in the mountains where Sarah had learned that healing was as much about presence as medicine. And the wolf listened. Always listened. Sometimes he'd make sounds, those wind-through-glass notes that Sarah was starting to recognize. Not language exactly, but communication, intent shaped into sound. On the 4th day, the wolf stood, not with Sarah's help, on his own. The guards tensed, hands moving to weapons, but the wolf just stretched, careful of his healing ribs, and walked slowly across the medical facility. His gait was uneven, favoring the leg with the scaffold, but he was mobile. He walked to the window, looked out at the twin moons rising over Epsilon 7's alien landscape, and he sang. It wasn't like any sound Sarah had ever heard. It was harmony and discord, joy and sorrow, a song that felt like it came from the core of the universe itself. Everyone in the facility stopped what they were doing. Some people started crying without knowing why. Others smiled. The sound wrapped around them all, connecting them to something vast and old and impossibly beautiful. When the song ended, the wolf turned to look at Sarah, and for the first time she heard his voice in her mind. Not words, deeper than words. Understanding flowing directly from consciousness to consciousness, gratitude, recognition. A promise that this was not an ending but a beginning. Sarah understood then. She hadn't just saved his life. She'd done something else. Something bigger. She'd reached across the vast gap between species, between worlds, between ways of being, and said the most human thing possible. You matter. Your life has value. I will not let you die alone. And in return, the ancient wolf had given her something precious beyond measure. A connection. A friendship. A glimpse into mysteries that humanity was only beginning to understand. The authorities from Earth would arrive eventually. There would be questions, investigations, maybe consequences. But standing there in the medical facility, watching the white wolf sing to the alien moons, Sarah knew she wouldn't change a single decision. Some things were worth the risk. Some lives were worth saving. And sometimes, healing wasn't just about fixing what was broken. It was about building bridges between souls who'd never imagined they could understand each other. The wolf's golden eyes met hers, and Sarah smiled. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The message from Earth Command arrived exactly 1 week after Sarah found the wolf. She'd been expecting it, but that didn't make the summons any less intimidating. Report to the communications center. Immediately. Bring all documentation regarding the incident. Rodriguez walked with her, his expression grim. The white wolf followed 3 paces behind, moving smoothly now despite the healing leg. He'd refused to stay in the medical facility after the second day, had simply walked out and appointed himself Sarah's shadow. Wherever she went, he went. The colonists had gotten used to seeing them together. They're going to crucify you, Rodriguez said quietly. First contact protocols exist for a reason, Chen. What you did was reckless. What I did was necessary, Sarah replied. He was dying. You didn't know what he was. Could have been hostile. Could have been carrying diseases that would wipe out the colony. Could have been... He was a person in pain, Sarah interrupted. And I'm a doctor. The rest doesn't matter. Rodriguez shook his head but didn't argue further. They reached the communications center, where Yuki was already waiting. The xenobiologist looked nervous, clutching a data pad filled with her research. The holographic display crackled to life. 5 faces appeared. Members of Earth Command's Alien Contact Committee. Sarah recognized Admiral Huang, the committee chair. She was known for being brilliant and absolutely merciless when it came to protocol violations. Dr. Chen, Huang said, her voice cold. You are aware of why you've been summoned? Yes, Admiral. Then you understand the severity of your actions. Unauthorized first contact, medical intervention without proper quarantine procedures, bringing an unknown alien life form into a civilian colony. The list goes on. Sarah stood straight. Behind her, she felt the wolf's presence, solid and reassuring. I understand, Admiral. But if you're asking if I regret it, the answer is no. Huang's expression didn't change. Explain, so Sarah did. She told them everything. Finding the wolf in the ravine. The decision to treat him. The surgery. The discoveries about his biology. She spoke clearly, leaving nothing out. Yuki added technical details, showing them the cellular scans, the impossible healing rates, the quantum fields that defied current understanding. When they finished, silence filled the communication center. The committee members looked at each other, having some conversation Sarah couldn't hear. Finally, Huang spoke. Dr. Chen, what you've done is unprecedented. It's also potentially catastrophic. We're sending a specialized team to Epsilon 7. They'll arrive in 4 months. Until then, the alien remains under strict quarantine. No physical contact. No, the wolf moved. He'd been so still that everyone had almost forgotten he was there. But now he walked forward, into the range of the holographic cameras. The committee members recoiled in their distant offices as the massive white wolf filled their screens. And then he did something that changed everything. He spoke. Not in sounds. Not in that wind-through-glass language. He spoke in perfect English, his voice resonating in the minds of everyone in the room and everyone watching from Earth. It was like listening to mountains talk, to ancient stone given voice. I am Kael'thar, the wolf said. I am the last of the wanderers. I have walked between stars since before your species learned to make fire. I have seen galaxies born and die. I have witnessed civilizations rise to heights you cannot imagine and fall into dust. I am old beyond your comprehension. Sarah's legs went weak. She grabbed a chair for support. The wolf could talk, had always been able to talk. He'd just chosen not to until now. 4 cycles ago, I was wounded in a battle you would not understand, fighting enemies your species is not yet ready to know exist. I came to this world to die in peace, away from the wars that consume the outer darkness, and then she found me. Kael'thar turned his golden eyes to Sarah. The warmth in that gaze made her heart ache. This human, who had no reason to help me, who risked everything, chose compassion over fear. She saw a being in pain and responded with healing. This is what your species calls humanity, is it not? Not the name of your people, but the quality. The choice to care when caring is difficult. The refusal to let death claim another soul without fighting. He turned back to the cameras. Your Epsilon 7 protocols exist to protect you. This is wise. But in protecting yourselves, do not forget what makes you worth protecting. Dr. Chen saved my life not because it was safe or sanctioned, but because it was right. Because in her core she understands what your species is still learning. That all consciousness has value. That bridges between different forms of life are precious. That sometimes the rules must bend so the spirit behind them can flourish. Admiral Huang found her voice. You're saying Dr. Chen did the right thing? I am saying, Kael'thar replied, that I have observed 147 sentient species across this galaxy. Most die before they learn what Dr. Chen knows instinctively, that survival alone is not enough, that a civilization must have something worth surviving for. Compassion, curiosity, the courage to help the stranger who falls. He paused, and when he continued, his voice was softer. Your species is young, barely out of your home system. You are afraid and confused and trying so hard to do everything correctly. But you're missing something crucial. Rules serve life. Life does not serve rules. Dr. Chen understood this. She broke your protocols to honor something deeper, the fundamental right of all beings to be seen, to be helped, to be given a chance. Another committee member spoke up. You're advocating for the abandonment of first contact protocols? No, Kael'thar said. I am advocating for wisdom. For the ability to distinguish between situations where protocols protect and situations where they harm. Dr. Chen faced an individual dying alone. She had the knowledge and tools to help. Your protocols would have required her to document and report while I bled out. Tell me, members of Earth Command, what does that say about your species? About what you value? The question hung in the air. Sarah watched the committee members shift uncomfortably. Yuki spoke up, her voice shaking but determined. Admiral, if I may, in my analysis of Kael'thar's biology, I've discovered something important. He's not just ancient, he's actively dying. Not from his injuries, those have healed, but from time itself. His cells are breaking down in ways I can't explain. He came to Epsilon 7 to die, and Dr. Chen gave him a reason to keep living. Kael'thar made a sound that might have been a laugh. The young scientist sees clearly. My kind, the Wanderers, we are not immortal. We simply live very, very long, and after countless centuries, we grow tired. The weight of memory becomes too heavy. Most of us simply stop. Let our bodies return to the stars. I thought I was ready. I thought I had seen everything worth seeing. His gaze found Sarah again. I was wrong. In this one human doctor, I found something I had not seen in 1,000 years. Pure, uncomplicated kindness. Not kindness because it serves a purpose. Not kindness because it will be rewarded. Kindness because the alternative is unthinkable. She looked at a dying alien in a dark ravine and said, "Not today." And in doing so, she reminded me why consciousness itself is worth celebrating. Admiral Huang was silent for a long moment. Then she leaned forward. Kael'thar, you said you're dying. Can we help? Perhaps, he said. But that is a conversation for later. For now, I ask you this. Dr. Chen faces consequences for saving me, for choosing life over protocol. What message does that send to your species? What kind of civilization do you wish to become? The committee went into private consultation. Sarah stood frozen, unable to process what was happening. The wolf she'd saved could speak, was ancient beyond imagining, was currently arguing for her defense to the most powerful military authority in human space. When the hologram reactivated, Admiral Huang's expression had changed. Still serious, but something else now. Respect, maybe. Dr. Chen, the committee has reached a decision. There will be no charges filed. However, you will be required to work with the incoming specialist team. Your unique relationship with Kael'thar makes you an invaluable resource for understanding his species. Sarah felt the tension drain from her body. Thank you, Admiral. Don't thank me, Huang said. Thank your patient. He makes a compelling argument. She paused. For what it's worth, Doctor, I think you did something remarkable. Terrifying, reckless, and completely against every rule we've established. But remarkable. The transmission ended. Sarah turned to look at Kael'thar, this ancient being who had just upended her understanding of everything. You could talk the whole time, she said. Yes. Why didn't you? Kael'thar's golden eyes gleamed with something that might have been mischief. Because silence is often more honest than speech. In your silence beside me, in your actions without words, you showed me who you truly are, and I wanted to know that before revealing myself. Sarah couldn't help it. She laughed. Here she'd been worrying about this mysterious alien, and he'd been testing her. You manipulative old wolf. Indeed, Kael'thar agreed, and she could hear the smile in his ancient voice. Shall we walk? I believe I owe you a story. Several thousand stories, in fact, about the stars and the worlds and the wonders this universe holds. You saved my life, Dr. Chen. Let me spend what remains of it showing you why it was worth saving. The nights on Epsilon 7 were long, 14 hours of darkness under the twin moons. Sarah had grown to love them. She'd sit on the ridge overlooking the colony, Kael'thar beside her, and he would tell her stories that made the universe feel both impossibly vast and intimately small. There is a world, he said one night, his voice carrying on the wind, where the oceans are made of liquid methane, and creatures of crystalline thought swim through the depths. They dream entire civilizations into existence, and those dream cities are as real as your colony below us. They live for a single day, experience 1,000 years, and then fade when the dreamer wakes. Sarah hugged her knees to her chest. That's beautiful and terrifying. Most things worth knowing are both, Kael'thar agreed. Your species has a saying, the truth will set you free. But freedom and comfort are not the same thing. Truth demands that you expand, that you accept complexity. It is easier to remain small and certain. Is that what happened to the species that didn't survive? They stayed small? Kael'thar was quiet for a moment. Some did. Others grew too quickly, reached too far before they were ready. Balance is the hardest lesson. Your humanity, Dr. Chen, your actual humanity, not just the name, that is a form of balance. Logic balanced with emotion. Caution balanced with courage. Self-interest balanced with compassion. You make us sound better than we are, Sarah said. You've seen Earth's history. The wars, the genocides. The way we've treated each other and our planet. We're not exactly paragons of virtue. No species is, Kael'thar said. Perfection is a myth told by those who fear growth. What matters is the direction of your journey. Are you becoming more than you were? Are you learning from your failures? When I was young, my people believed we had achieved perfection. We thought our long lives and advanced technology made us superior to younger species. That arrogance nearly destroyed us. What changed? We met a species even younger than yours, he said. They lived only 20 of your years. Brief sparks in the darkness. But in that short time, they created art and philosophy that moved us to tears. They loved with an intensity we had forgotten was possible. They died, all of them, when their star went supernova. We could have saved them. We had the technology, but our protocol said not to interfere with natural events. Sarah heard the pain in his voice even after countless centuries. You regret that. Every moment of my endless life, Kael'thar said. We valued our rules over their existence. We chose what was correct over what was right. After they died, I left my people, became a wanderer, spent millennia trying to understand why protocol had mattered more than life. Your actions in that ravine, Dr. Chen, they answered a question I have carried for longer than your species has existed. What question? Whether the instinct to help, to heal, to refuse to let another suffer, whether that instinct is stronger than fear and rules and the comfort of staying separate. You proved it is. You, one young human with basic medical training and limited supplies, you chose compassion over caution. You are what my people should have been. Sarah felt tears on her cheeks. She hadn't cried in months, not since leaving Earth. But something about Kael'thar's words broke through the walls she'd built. I just did what any doctor would do. No, Kylthar said gently. You did what any good doctor would do. There is a difference. I have seen many doctors across many species. Most would have followed the protocols. Most would have called for authorization. You saw a being in pain and immediately began trying to fix it. That is not training. That is character. Over the following weeks, Kylthar became part of the colony's daily life. He helped in ways both large and small. When a supply ship crashed in the southern desert, Kylthar guided the rescue team through a sandstorm that would have killed them. He knew the storm patterns, had watched this world's weather for weeks while dying in that ravine. When the colony's fusion reactor began developing anomalies, Kylthar walked into the reactor room and placed his paw on the core housing. The quantum fields in his cells somehow stabilized the reaction. The engineers couldn't explain it. Kylthar just said that he understood how matter and energy danced together, and sometimes you just needed to ask politely for them to behave. Children loved him. At first, parents were nervous when their kids approached the massive white wolf, but Kylthar had infinite patience for the young. He would lie in the colony's central plaza while children climbed on him, asking endless questions. He told them stories that made their eyes shine with wonder. He taught them that being different wasn't something to fear. Sarah watched him bring the colony together in ways she'd never seen. People from different Earth nations, different cultures, different ideologies. They all found common ground in their fascination with the ancient wolf. Disagreements that had simmered for months got resolved. Kylthar had a way of asking questions that made people think about what really mattered. But Yuki's words haunted Sarah. Kylthar was dying. His healing might have bought time, but the fundamental breakdown of his cells continued. Sarah ran tests obsessively, searching for answers. There had to be something, some treatment, some cure. You are trying to hold back the ocean, Kylthar told her one evening in the medical facility. Sarah had been running scans for 3 hours straight. I appreciate the effort, but some things cannot be fixed. I refuse to accept that, Sarah said. There has to be a way. Your technology, your people's knowledge, there must be something. My people are gone, Kylthar said softly. The wanderers scattered to the far corners of the galaxy. Some may still live, but we lost touch centuries ago. Each of us chose our own path, our own ending. I chose this world, this colony. You, why? Sarah demanded. Why choose to die here? Because I was tired, Kylthar said. Tired of wandering. Tired of being alone with my memories. I came here thinking I would have a quiet ending under alien stars. Instead, I found a reason to remember why life matters. You gave me that gift. Now I want to give you one in return. He stood, moving to the window. The twin moons were rising, painting the landscape in silver and blue. I want to give you my memories. Not all of them. That would break your mind, but carefully selected pieces. Knowledge your species will need for what is coming. What's coming? Sarah asked. Kylthar turned to face her. The same enemies that wounded me. The ones who exist in the spaces between dimensions. Who consume worlds the way you breathe air. They are moving toward this part of the galaxy. In 50 years, maybe 60, they will arrive. Humanity needs to be ready. Sarah felt cold. Why didn't you tell us this before? Because knowledge of inevitable doom does not help unprepared minds. It creates only panic. But if I give you the foundation, if I teach you what I know about the universe's true nature, then when the time comes, your species will have a chance. Not certainty, just a chance. That is all anyone gets. How do you transfer memories? It is not simple, Kylthar admitted. It requires trust. Complete openness between minds. I would need to touch your consciousness directly. Share what I am at the deepest level. It might hurt. It will definitely change you. You would see things no human has seen, know things no human has known. The weight of that knowledge can be crushing. Sarah thought about her grandmother, teaching her to heal in that mountain clinic. The old woman had told her something once, words Sarah had never forgotten. The world needs people willing to carry the difficult knowledge. Not everyone can do it, but someone must. I'll do it, Sarah said. Think carefully, Kylthar warned. Once shared memories cannot be unshared. You will carry pieces of my very long, very complicated life. You will know joy and sorrow in measures that might overwhelm you. I know, Sarah said, but if it helps humanity survive, if it gives us that chance you mentioned, then it's worth it. You gave me a gift when you decided to keep living. Let me give you one in return. Let me make sure everything you've learned, everything you've experienced doesn't die with you. Let me help carry it forward. Kael'thar studied her with those ancient golden eyes. Then slowly, he lowered his massive head until his forehead rested against hers. You are brave beyond measure, Dr. Chen. Your grandmother taught you well. Very well, I accept your offer. But we must do this carefully, over time. Too much at once will destroy you. We will start small. A single memory. A single lesson. And build from there. When do we start? Sarah asked. Now, Kael'thar said, and then his mind touched hers. The first memory hit like a wave. Sarah was suddenly standing on a world with 3 suns, watching creatures of pure light dance through the air. She could feel Kael'thar's younger self, filled with wonder at the beauty, could feel the texture of the moment, the smell of that alien air, the sound of light song echoing across the landscape. It lasted maybe 3 seconds in real time. When it ended, Sarah was on her knees, tears streaming down her face. Not from pain, from the overwhelming beauty of what she'd just experienced. That, Kael'thar said gently, was one of my happier memories. A moment of pure joy from when I was young. Can you handle more? Sarah looked up at him and smiled through her tears. I can handle whatever you need to share. We're partners now, right? You and me against the weight of the universe. You and me, Kael'thar agreed. The ancient wolf and the stubborn healer. Doing so, we'll both find peace. You with your need to save everyone, me with my need to be worth saving. They worked through the night, sharing memories like treasures, and with each one, Sarah understood more about the universe, about consciousness, about the incredible, fragile, precious nature of existence itself. It was the beginning of something unprecedented. A bridge between ancient and young, between alien and human, between dying and living, and somewhere in that exchange both Sarah and Kael'thar found what they'd been searching for. Purpose. Connection. Hope that their lives mattered in the vast, indifferent cosmos. They were no longer alone, and that made all the difference. The memory sharing changed Sarah in ways she couldn't fully explain. She would be conducting routine examinations and suddenly understand the deeper patterns of biology she'd never seen before. She'd look at the night sky and recognize constellations from alien perspectives, seeing the galaxy as Kael'thar had seen it across millennia. Yuki noticed first. You're different, the xenobiologist said one morning in the lab. The way you move, the way you look at things, it's like you're seeing layers the rest of us can't. Kael'thar is teaching me, Sarah admitted. She explained the memory transfer, the shared consciousness. Yuki listened with growing excitement. Sarah, do you understand what this means? If Kael'thar can transfer knowledge directly, we could accelerate human development by centuries. Medicine, physics, engineering, everything. It's not that simple, Sarah said. The memories come with context, emotion. You don't just get the information. You get the experience of acquiring it. It's overwhelming. Most people couldn't handle it, but you can. Sarah thought about that. Could she? Some nights she woke up gasping, her mind full of alien stars and ancient wars. Some mornings she couldn't remember if the memories were hers or Kael'thar's. The boundaries were blurring. I'm managing, she said finally. But managing was getting harder. The more memories Kael'thar shared, the more Sarah felt herself stretching, like a container trying to hold something too vast. She started having moments where she'd speak in languages she'd never learned, where she'd know facts about stellar formation that no human had discovered yet. Rodriguez noticed too. He pulled her aside one day after a colony meeting where Sarah had correctly predicted a solar storm 3 days before their sensors detected it. Chen, I need you to be honest with me. Is this safe? What Kael'thar is doing to you? It's not being done to me, Sarah said. It's being done with me. There's a difference. You barely sleep. You're losing weight. Yesterday you started explaining quantum mechanics to our physicist in terms she'd never heard before. And when she checked your work, you were right. That's not normal, Sarah couldn't argue. Nothing about this was normal. But she also couldn't stop. Every memory Kael'thar shared revealed how much humanity didn't know. How many dangers lurked in the universe. How unprepared they were for what was coming. That night she found Kael'thar on their usual ridge. He was staring at the stars with an expression she'd learned to read. Sadness. Deep and old. I'm hurting you, he said before she could speak. The memories are too much. I should stop. No, Sarah said firmly. She sat beside him, pressing against his warm flank. Don't stop. I need this. Humanity needs this. At the cost of your well-being, At the cost of whatever it takes, Sarah said. You told me about those enemies coming. The ones between dimensions. If we're not ready, they'll destroy us. Every memory you give me is a tool we can use to survive. I can handle it, can you? Kael'thar turned his golden eyes on her. Sarah, I can feel you changing. Your consciousness is adapting to carry knowledge it was never meant to hold. You're becoming something neither fully human nor fully wanderer. Something in between. I don't know what that will do to you. Then we'll find out together, Sarah said. You didn't give up when you were dying. I'm not giving up on this. Kael'thar made that sound, the one Sarah now recognized as a sigh. You are possibly the most stubborn being I have encountered in 3,000 years. Good. Stubborn is what the situation requires. They sat in silence for a while. Then Kael'thar said quietly, There's something I haven't told you, about why I can share memories the way I do, about what the Wanderers really were. Sarah waited. She'd learned that Kael'thar revealed things in his own time. We were not born as we are, he said. The Wanderers were created, an experiment by an even older civilization. They wanted to preserve knowledge across the eons, so they created beings who could store and transfer consciousness. Living libraries. Living legacies. We were designed to survive long enough to pass wisdom from one era to the next. You're saying you're artificial? Not artificial, purpose-built, there's a difference. We lived, we felt. We were as real as you. But we had a function, and for millennia, we performed that function. We traveled between species, sharing knowledge, helping young civilizations avoid the mistakes that destroyed older ones. We were bridges across time. What happened to the civilization that made you? They evolved beyond physical form, Kael'thar said. Became beings of pure energy. They're still out there somewhere, but they no longer interact with material reality. They left us behind to continue their mission. Most wanderers accepted this, spent their long lives teaching and guiding, but some of us grew tired. The weight of memory became too heavy. We scattered, stopped performing our function. I was one of those. Sarah processed this. So when you came here to die, you were giving up on your purpose. Yes. And now? Now I've found a new purpose, Kael'thar said. Not teaching entire civilizations. Just one person. One stubborn, compassionate human who refuses to let me waste what I know. You've reminded me why the mission mattered. Why knowledge is worth preserving. Why life, even brief human life, is precious enough to fight for. He turned to face her fully. But Sarah, you must understand. What I'm turning you into, it's irreversible. You will outlive everyone you know. The memories will sustain you, change your biology. You're becoming something close to what I am. A carrier, a keeper of knowledge. Your human life, the simple one where you're just a colony doctor, that's ending. Are you truly ready for what comes after? The question hung between them. Sarah thought about her grandmother, about the simple clinic in the mountains, about the life she'd imagined having. Children, maybe. Growing old in some quiet place. All of that was slipping away with each memory she absorbed. But she also thought about humanity's future. About the enemies coming from beyond. About the chance Kael'thar was giving them to survive. Could she walk away from that? Could she choose her own simple happiness over the survival of her species? I'm ready, Sarah said. I've been ready since I found you dying in that ravine. I didn't save you just so you could live a few more comfortable months. I saved you because you matter. Because what you know matters. If carrying that forward means I become something more than human, then that's what I'll become. Kael'thar studied her for a long moment. Then he lowered his head, touching his forehead to hers. Then we continue. But we do this right. No more rushing. We'll take years if necessary. Build your capacity slowly. Let your mind adapt at its own pace. I will not break you in my hurry to save your species. Years, Sarah said. You said you're dying. I was dying, Kael'thar corrected. But your treatment, your care, the quantum fields in your medical equipment, they've done something unexpected. They've stabilized me, not permanently, but longer than I anticipated. We might have 5 years, maybe 10, long enough to do this properly. Relief flooded through Sarah. She'd been so afraid of losing him, of this connection ending before it truly began. 10 years to save humanity. No pressure. Kael'thar's laugh echoed across the ridge. Indeed. Shall we begin tonight's lesson? I have a memory I think you're ready for. One about a species that learned to turn sunlight into mathematics. Their entire civilization was built on the premise that beauty and truth are the same thing. You'll like them. They remind me of you. They worked through the night again. This time Sarah experienced the fall of a civilization. Not through war or disaster, but through choice. A species that decided physical existence was limiting and collectively transcended to become something else. She felt their hope, their fear, their absolute certainty that they were making the right choice. When the memory ended, Sarah was crying again. But not from sadness, from understanding something profound. That existence took many forms. That consciousness was more flexible than humanity imagined. That death wasn't always an ending and life wasn't always what it seemed. They're beautiful, she whispered. They were, Kyothr agreed. And in a way they still are. Just different. The universe is full of such transformations. Your species stands at the beginning of its journey. What you become is not predetermined. You could follow the path of those light beings. Or you could become something entirely unique. That's what I want to preserve. The possibility, the potential. Your right to choose your own evolution. Over the following months, the pattern continued. Days spent working in the colony, helping people, solving problems. Nights spent on the ridge, absorbing memories that spanned civilizations. Sarah felt herself changing, expanding, becoming more than she'd been. The colonists noticed. Some were afraid. A few called for her removal, claiming she was no longer fully human. But most were curious. They saw how she could predict problems before they occurred. How she understood complex systems intuitively. How she'd started helping in ways that seemed almost magical, but were really just the application of knowledge from 1,000 different species. Rodriguez called another meeting. This time it wasn't accusatory. It was practical. Chen, we need to know what you're becoming. For our own safety, yes, but also because people are starting to see you as something between human and alien. That's dangerous. For you and for the colony's cohesion. Sarah stood before the assembled colonists. 200 faces looking at her with mixtures of fear, hope, curiosity. She took a deep breath and told them the truth. I'm becoming a bridge, she said, between what humanity is and what it could be. Kyothr is teaching me things that will take our species centuries to discover on our own. And yes, it's changing me. I'm not the same person who found a dying wolf 2 years ago. But I'm not less human. I'm more. I'm carrying the experiences of multiple civilizations, and I'm doing it so that when the time comes, when humanity faces its greatest challenge, we'll have the knowledge to survive. What challenge? Someone called out. Sarah looked at Kyothr, who nodded permission. There are things in this universe that want to destroy us. Not out of hatred. They don't have emotions like that. They simply consume. Entire dimensions. Whole galaxies. They're coming. Not tomorrow. Not next year. But within our lifetimes. And when they arrive, humanity needs to be ready. That's what Kyothr is preparing me for. That's why I'm willing to change. The silence that followed was deafening. Then a child no more than 8 years old stood up. Will we be okay? Sarah smiled at her. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure you are. That's a promise. The vote was unanimous. The colony supported her transformation. Not because they fully understood it, but because they trusted her. Because in 2 years Sarah had proven herself over and over, and because sometimes you had to take a leap of faith. That night, as Sarah and Kyothr shared another memory, she realized something profound. She'd saved his life in that ravine, but in a very real way he was saving hers, giving it meaning beyond anything she'd imagined. Turning a simple doctor into something that might help save an entire species. They were partners, the ancient and the young, the dying and the living, together, building a bridge across the stars, and whatever came next they would face it as they'd faced everything else, together, with stubbornness and hope and the absolute refusal to let darkness win without a fight. The specialist team from Earth arrived during Epsilon 7's third winter cycle. Sarah had been working with Kyothr for nearly 4 years by then. She'd absorbed thousands of memories, learned 17 forms of mathematics that didn't exist in human knowledge, and could now perceive dimensions of reality most people couldn't imagine. The team consisted of 12 scientists, 3 military advisors, and 1 very stern diplomat named Ambassador Flores. They came expecting to study an alien. Instead, they found a colony transformed and a human woman who could explain concepts their best theoretical physicists were still struggling to understand. The first meeting was tense. Flores sat across from Sarah and Kyothr in the colony's main conference room, her expression carefully neutral. The scientists behind her couldn't hide their fascination. Dr. Chen, Flores began, Earth Command has reviewed all reports from this colony. What you've done is unprecedented. It's also concerning. You've allowed yourself to be altered by alien knowledge. How can we be certain you're still acting in humanity's best interests? Sarah met the ambassador's gaze steadily. 4 years ago, that question would have made her defensive. Now she simply understood it. You can't be certain. You'll have to trust me, just like I had to trust Kael'thar when he was dying in that ravine. Trust is the foundation of everything we're building here. Trust is earned, Flores said. Not given freely. Then let me earn it, Sarah replied. Your physicists are struggling with the quantum entanglement problem, correct? The one that's preventing faster-than-light communication? I can solve it. Right now. Give me a whiteboard and 10 minutes. One of the scientists, Dr. Park, leaned forward eagerly. If you can solve that, it would revolutionize our understanding of space-time communication. Sarah stood and walked to the wall display. Her fingers moved across the holographic interface, drawing equations that made the scientist gasp. She was writing in 3 languages simultaneously: human mathematics, the symbolic logic of a species from the Andromeda cluster, and a visual language that represented mathematical concepts as colors and shapes. The problem with your current models, Sarah explained, is that you're thinking of entanglement as a 2-point connection. It's not. It's a relationship that exists outside of space-time entirely. You need to approach it from a dimensional framework that acknowledges the underlying structure of reality itself. She continued for exactly 10 minutes, building a complete theoretical framework that solved problems humanity had been wrestling with for decades. When she finished, the room was silent except for Dr. Park's rapid typing as he recorded everything. This is impossible, one scientist whispered. This would take years to verify, but if even half of it is correct, it's beyond anything we've conceived. It's all correct, Kael'thar said, speaking for the first time. His mental voice filled the room, making several people jump. Because Sarah isn't inventing new theories. She's remembering solutions that other species discovered millennia ago. She's become what I am, a keeper of knowledge. A bridge between civilizations. Flores looked between Sarah and Kael'thar. You're saying there are more problems she can solve? Hundreds, Kael'thar said. Perhaps thousands. But Sarah has made something clear to me over these years. Knowledge without wisdom is dangerous. We don't simply give you all the answers. We guide you toward discoveries you're ready to handle. We help you grow rather than simply feeding you information that could destroy you. Destroy us how? Flores demanded. Sarah sat back down. There are technologies I could teach you right now that would let humanity shatter planets. Rewrite biological code with a thought. Tear holes between dimensions. But if I gave you those tools before you had the ethical framework to use them responsibly, you'd destroy yourselves within a generation. That's what happened to 17 of the civilizations Kael'thar has witnessed. They gained too much power too quickly. She leaned forward. What we're offering is something different. A measured path. We'll help you solve your current problems. Energy generation, disease, environmental restoration. But we'll do it in a way that lets you grow into each solution. That lets your ethics and philosophy keep pace with your technology. Flores was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, That sounds reasonable. Too reasonable. What's the catch? The catch, Kael'thar said, is that this only works if Sarah continues her transformation, if she keeps absorbing my memories until she becomes a complete repository. And that process will eventually make her more wanderer than human. She will live for thousands of years. She will watch everyone she knows and loves die. She will carry the weight of civilizations in her mind. It is a terrible burden, and we are asking her to bear it for the sake of your species. Sarah felt all eyes turn to her. She'd known this day would come. The moment when Earth Command would have to decide whether to support her transformation or try to stop it. I've made my choice, Sarah said quietly. 4 years ago, I saved a dying wolf because I couldn't walk away from someone in pain. Now I can't walk away from this. Humanity deserves a chance to survive what's coming. If carrying Kael'thar's knowledge is what gives us that chance, then I'll carry it, no matter the cost. Ambassador Flores studied her for a long time. Then she nodded. All right. Earth Command is prepared to support this project, but with conditions. We'll send more specialists. We'll build proper facilities here on Epsilon 7. We'll document everything. And Dr. Chen, you'll need to start training others. You can't be the only one carrying this knowledge. We need redundancy. Others can't handle it, Sarah said. I've tried. The memories are too intense. Most people's minds can't stretch far enough. Then we'll find people who can, Flores said firmly, or we'll develop technologies to help them. Humanity has always adapted. We'll adapt to this too. Over the next year, the colony transformed into something resembling a university. Brilliant minds from Earth arrived, eager to learn from Sarah and Kael'thar. Some failed, unable to handle even basic memory transfers, but a few succeeded. A physicist named Marcus who could absorb mathematical concepts, a biologist named Keiko, who understood the patterns of life across species, a philosopher named Ahmed, who could grasp the ethical frameworks of alien civilizations. Sarah trained them carefully, sharing pieces of what she knew. It was exhausting. Every transfer took something from her, required her to relive the memories herself. But it was working. Humanity was building a foundation of knowledge that might save them. Kael'thar grew weaker. The stabilization from Sarah's initial treatment was fading. His body was breaking down again, more slowly than before, but inevitably. They both knew his time was limited now. Maybe 2 years. Maybe 3, I'm afraid, Sarah admitted one night. They were alone on their ridge, the colony lights twinkling below. Not of you dying. I've seen enough of your memories to know that death isn't always an ending. I'm afraid of doing this without you, of being the only ancient one in a world of young humans. Kael'thar pressed against her. He was thinner now, his white fur less brilliant. But his eyes were still golden, still warm. You won't be alone. You have your students, and more importantly, you have something I spent millennia searching for, a purpose that matters. You're not just carrying knowledge. You're building a future that will sustain you when I'm gone. Will it hurt? Sarah asked. When you die? For you or for me? Both. Kael'thar was quiet. Then he said, for me, no. I've lived far longer than I was ever meant to. I'm ready. I've made peace with ending. For you, yes. It will hurt, because you've done something I thought impossible. You've made me feel connected again. After centuries of wandering alone, you've given me friendship, family. That's a gift I can never repay. You've already repaid it, Sarah said, 1,000 times over. You've given me purpose, understanding, a glimpse of how beautiful and terrible and wonderful the universe really is. I was just a colony doctor. You've made me something more. No, Kael'thar corrected gently. You were always something more. I just helped you see it. The person who saved me in that ravine, the one who refused to let me die alone, that person was already extraordinary. I've simply helped you become who you were always meant to be. They sat together as the twin moons rose, the ancient wolf and the becoming ancient human, partners in the truest sense. And even though they both knew their time together was ending, there was no sadness in that moment. Only gratitude for the chance meeting, for the choice to help, for the connection that had transformed them both. The next morning, Sarah gave a presentation to the assembled scientists. She shared a memory from one of the civilizations Kael'thar had witnessed, a species that had learned to convert dying stars into art, creating beauty from cosmic death. The scientists were transfixed, seeing through Sarah's eyes the impossible sculptures of light and gravity. This is what we're working toward, Sarah explained. Not just survival, but the ability to find meaning and beauty even in the face of entropy. The enemies coming for us are powerful, but they're not invincible. They're just another part of the universe's complexity. And if we can learn to see that complexity, to work with it rather than against it, we'll find ways to survive that we can't currently imagine. Dr. Park raised his hand. How long do we have? Before they arrive? Sarah closed her eyes, accessing the deep memories Kael'thar had shared about the dimensional entities. 47 years. Give or take 5. Enough time to prepare if we start now. Enough time to become something these entities have never encountered before. What would that be? Ambassador Flores asked. Sarah smiled. A species that refuses to be conquered. That fights not with just weapons or technology, but with creativity and compassion and absolute stubborn determination to survive. That's what makes humanity special, according to Kael'thar. You don't just accept what you're told is possible. You redefine possible with every generation. Kael'thar's mental voice joined hers. I have watched 147 species face extinction-level threats. 32 survived. All 32 had one thing in common. They refused to accept defeat. They found ways to adapt, to change, to become whatever they needed to be. Humanity has that quality. Sarah has proven it. She was given a dying alien and impossible odds, and she simply refused to accept failure. That's the spirit that will save your species. Not the knowledge I'm sharing. That's just a tool. The spirit, the humanity, that's the real weapon. The room erupted in discussion. Plans forming. Ideas building. Sarah watched it all with a sense of pride and sorrow mixed together. This was what Kael'thar's life had been building toward. This transfer of knowledge. This passing of the torch. That night, Kael'thar collapsed. Sarah was with him immediately, her medical training taking over even as panic screamed in her mind. His heart was failing. The cells finally breaking down beyond recovery. She had hours, maybe less. She called for Yuki for the medical team, but even as they arrived, Sarah knew this was the end. The 2 or 3 years had become 4, and now time had run out. Don't, Kael'thar said weakly. No heroic measures. Let me go, Sarah. It's time. I can't, Sarah said, tears streaming. I can't lose you. You're not losing me, Kael'thar said. His mental voice was fading, but still warm. Still him. You carry everything I am. Every memory. Every lesson. I'll live on in you, in your students, in the future you're building. That's immortality enough. Sarah held him. This massive white wolf who'd changed everything. Thank you. For letting me save you. For teaching me. For being my friend. Thank you, Kael'thar responded. For refusing to let me die alone. For showing me that even after 3,000 years there are still surprises. Still wonders. Still reasons to hope. You've been the greatest gift of my very long life. His breathing slowed. Sarah felt his consciousness beginning to fade, like a star dimming, and then, with his last strength, Kael'thar did something unexpected. He pushed one final memory into her mind, not a lesson or a piece of knowledge, just a feeling, pure gratitude, pure love, the emotional essence of what their connection had meant to him. Then he was gone. The great ancient wolf, the last of the wanderers, died in Sarah's arms with twin moons shining overhead. And Sarah, who'd saved him once in a dark ravine, could only hold him and cry, not for knowledge lost or missions unfinished, but for a friend who'd taught her what it meant to truly live, even in the face of death. They buried Kael'thar on the ridge where he and Sarah had spent so many nights watching the twin moons. The entire colony attended. People from Earth Command flew in for the ceremony. Even Ambassador Flores spoke, calling Kael'thar a bridge between species and a gift to humanity. Sarah stood silent through most of it. She couldn't speak. Couldn't find words adequate for what Kael'thar had meant. How do you summarize 3,000 years of life? How do you capture the essence of a being who'd witnessed civilizations rise and fall, who'd chosen to spend his final years helping one young species prepare for survival? But when they lowered his body into the earth, Sarah finally spoke. Not in English. Not in any human language. She spoke in the wind-through-glass sounds of Kael'thar's people, the language of the wanderers. It was a song of farewell, of gratitude, of promise that his legacy would continue. Everyone listened even though they couldn't understand the words. They understood the emotion, the love, the grief, the determination to honor what had been given. After the ceremony, Sarah returned to the medical facility that had become her workshop. The place where she and Kael'thar had spent countless hours sharing memories. It felt empty now, cold, but it was also filled with purpose. Marcus found her there, staring at displays showing the dimensional mathematics Kael'thar had taught her. The physicist looked uncomfortable, unsure how to approach someone who was grieving a being most humans couldn't truly comprehend. Dr. Chen, he said softly, I'm sorry for your loss. He was remarkable. He was, Sarah agreed. She didn't turn from the displays. And now we have to be remarkable without him. That's what he'd want. The team wants to know how we should proceed. With Kael'thar gone, do we continue the knowledge transfer? Do we keep preparing for the threat? Sarah finally turned to face Marcus. Her eyes were red from crying, but they were also clear, determined. We continue. That's the whole point. Kael'thar didn't teach me just to help him. He taught me so that when he was gone, humanity would still have access to what he knew. I'm the repository now, the keeper. And I'll do what he did. I'll guide. I'll teach. I'll help prepare us for what's coming. That's a massive responsibility, Marcus said. Yes, Sarah agreed, and I'll carry it. Because that's what you do when someone trusts you with something precious. You don't let them down. Over the following months, Sarah threw herself into the work. She trained her students harder. She solved more problems for Earth scientists. She helped design technologies that would give humanity edges it needed. Energy shields based on dimensional folding. Communication systems that worked across light years instantly. Biological enhancements that would help humans survive in hostile environments. But she also made sure to maintain what Kael'thar had taught her about wisdom. She didn't just hand over solutions. She guided people toward understanding. She made them work for knowledge, ensuring they developed the ethical frameworks to use it. Responsibly. Earth Command recognized the value of what was happening on Epsilon 7. They designated the colony as humanity's first knowledge archive. More resources flooded in. More students. The colony grew from 200 people to 2,000, then to 20,000. It became a city, a center of learning unlike anything humanity had created before. Sarah became something between a teacher, a leader, and a living legend. People called her the Keeper, the Bridge, the one who'd saved the ancient wolf and inherited his wisdom. She tried not to think about the titles. They felt heavy, wrong. She was just doing what needed to be done, but she was changing. She could feel it. Each year that passed, she felt less human and more something else. Her body wasn't aging the way it should. The wanderer memories in her cells were rewriting her biology, extending her life. She'd be around for a long time, possibly thousands of years, just like Kael'thar. That thought terrified her some nights. All that time, all those years watching people she cared about grow old and die while she remained. Was this what Kael'thar had felt? This crushing loneliness that came with immortality? But then she'd remember what he'd told her. Purpose sustains you. Connection matters more than longevity. And she'd throw herself back into the work, finding meaning in each small victory. Each student who grasped a difficult concept. Each step humanity took toward being ready for the threat to come. 20 years after Kael'thar's death, Sarah stood in what was now called the Archive's central chamber. Around her, holographic displays showed the progress humanity had made. New technologies, new ships being built, new defensive systems. The dimensional entities were still coming, but now humanity had a chance. Yuki approached, now the Archive's director of xenobiology. She was older, her hair gray, but her eyes still sparkled with curiosity. Sarah, we've had a breakthrough. The quantum entanglement communication system you designed, it's working. We've established contact with the colony on Tau Ceti. Instant communication across 12 light years. Sarah smiled. Kael'thar would have been pleased. That species he told me about, the one that turned mathematics into music, they used a similar system. I just adapted it for human technology. You've done so much, Yuki said. Given humanity so much. But Sarah, are you okay? You haven't aged a day in 20 years. The transformation is complete, isn't it? You're like him now, a wanderer. Sarah looked at her hands. Still young, still strong. She'd outlive everyone in this room. Everyone on this planet, probably. Yes, I'm like him now. Living library. Bridge across time. It's lonely, Yuki. Even with all these people around me, it's lonely. He felt that too, Yuki said gently. But he found you. Maybe you'll find someone too. Someone who understands. Or maybe you'll find purpose enough to make the loneliness bearable. Maybe, Sarah said. But she wondered, would there ever be another Kael'thar? Another being who could understand what it meant to carry the weight of ages? 30 years after Kael'thar's death, the dimensional entities arrived early. Not in 47 years as calculated. In 35, humanity scrambled to respond. Sarah stood in the command center, coordinating efforts across human space. The entities were massive, existing partially in dimensions humans could barely perceive. They consumed everything in their path, breaking down matter and energy into basic components. But humanity fought back. Using the technologies Sarah had helped develop. Using strategies based on how other civilizations had survived similar threats. The battles were devastating. Entire colonies lost. Millions dead. But humanity held because Sarah had prepared them, had given them tools and knowledge, and most importantly, had taught them to be adaptable. To think creatively. To refuse to accept defeat. The war lasted 5 years. In the end, humanity didn't destroy the entities. They learned to coexist with them. Sarah, drawing on memories from Kael'thar about a species that had achieved this, helped negotiate something unprecedented, a boundary. A agreement, though agreement wasn't quite the right word for communication with beings that didn't think in ways humans recognized. The entities moved on, leaving human space intact. They took resources from uninhabited systems, enough to sustain them, and in return they left humanity alone. It wasn't perfect, but it was survival. When the last entity passed beyond human territory, Sarah found herself back on Epsilon 7, back on the ridge where she'd spent so many nights with Kael'thar. The colony below was larger now. The archive had become a beacon of knowledge for all of human space. She sat where they used to sit, looking at the twin moons. And she spoke to the empty air, knowing Kael'thar wasn't there to hear but needing to say it anyway. We did it. Your knowledge, your lessons, they saved us. Humanity survived. We're not perfect. We lost so much. But we're still here. Still learning. Still growing. And I'm still teaching just like you taught me. I don't know how many centuries I have left. Maybe thousands. Maybe more. But I'll keep doing this. Keep being the bridge. Keep preparing humanity for whatever comes next. Because that's what you showed me. That knowledge matters. That connection matters. That every life has value worth fighting for. She paused, wiping away tears. I miss you. Every day I miss you. But I understand now why you did what you did. Why you shared everything with me. You weren't just saving humanity. You were creating something that would outlast you. A legacy that would continue long after you were gone. And I promise you, Kael'thar, I'll honor that legacy. I'll be what you were. A wanderer, a keeper, a friend to those who need one. The wind whispered across the ridge. For just a moment, Sarah could have sworn she heard that wind-through-glass sound. Kael'thar's voice. Not real, just memory, but comforting all the same. She stood looking down at the colony, at the lights, at the people going about their lives unaware of how close they'd come to extinction, how one decision by one doctor in a dark ravine had changed everything. Sarah Chen had never thought she'd heal an ancient albino alien wolf that night 45 years ago. Had never imagined the journey that choice would set in motion. But she'd done it anyway. Had reached out across the impossible distance between species and said the most human thing possible. You matter. You deserve help. You deserve a chance, and in return, Kael'thar had given humanity a gift beyond measure. Knowledge, wisdom, time to prepare, and one person who would carry his legacy forward through the ages, ensuring that his long life, his vast,